So on that note, I guess we call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Sorry I missed last month. But on that note, we need approval of the minutes. Did Steve join us, or can you tell?
When I looked a minute ago, he was not there.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, now we're up to 3. Oops. Oh. Amy was able to join us remotely.
Amy?
Yeah.
Hi, Amy.
So, can you guys hear us?
I could hear you.
Perfect, we can hear you.
Jeff. Who's on that? Jeff.
Amy and Jeff.
Yeah, I can hear you too.
The names are kind of okay.
I'll change my name.
You're
It's
one.
Tiffany.
I know. I just.
Amy, you're pretty quiet, so if you need to speak, you're gonna have to be a louder, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
There's Steve. There's a picture of Steve anyway. Steve, can you hear us?
Now he's on mute.
Are you- Check your mute, Steve.
We heard you.
I could hear you, but not very well.
Okay, is that better? Kinda.
It'll do. It'll do.
I might make everybody have sore ears if I yell too loud. What?
Yeah.
Okay, we need approval of the minutes, guys.
Okay, we need to approve the minutes with the change. I don't know whether it was type text. Office, they have under paragraph poster. That part of the minutes, it said, Mr. Smith approved. Second, they didn't, you were not here, it was Eric.
Oh.
Under the poster,
Mr. Simonson seconded the motion for the poster, is what you're saying.
under that section, it says, Mr. Smith approved, or second, if he wasn't here, Eric seconded the motion.
Well, and he couldn't have either, technically.
Right.
But, so Amy, did you catch that?
Yes, I got it.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
All right, so we've got that correction. Anything else?
I need to approve
So-
the minutes with that correct.
All right, Larry, okay, do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Cool, all right, so we got minutes. Okay, we got a lot of things on the agenda today, guys. Keller County Historic Preservation Committee discussion is, I think, for the most part, centers around Dave Martinique reached out to me, and I forwarded his contact information on to CJ with the idea of inviting Dave. Can you hear me, Steve? With the idea, kind of
I'm not
inviting.
gonna come down here because the microphone's.
Yeah, boy, don't I. Yeah, now see, you can just hear me. Is that better, Steve? Can you hear me better?
Yeah, I could hear you real good now.
There you go.
Okay,
So you guys at the end of the table, because Larry, you're pretty soft spoken.
Okay.
You're gonna either move to the end or
I'll
shout. All right, thanks, guys.
okay, so Dave Martinique contacted me. And I forwarded his contact information. They're ready to kind of get together with us from the county perspective and kind of put 2 and 2 together. I guess they're working on a CLG certification for the county. And CJ was going to reach out to Dave Martinique and invite him to the November meeting and see if we can begin a little bit of discussion. We'll find out where they're at with the CLG. We'll find out where they might be with their thoughts on the ocean to ocean highway bridge. How possibly there might be some opportunity to collaborate on anything that's overlapping, things like that. So I guess Steve, in your travels, have they populated the entire committee for the county to your knowledge?
You're on mute.
You're muted, Steve.
I don't know the answer to that. He told me, but I don't remember what he said. That was 4 months ago or so.
Okay. Well, I know they were still working on gathering some membership to get that committee back together. But to your knowledge, is Dave the chair? Is he?
The last I heard he was.
Okay, okay. Well, I do know they're just getting their feet back underneath them, so we'll go from there. So that's good news. We haven't had a Teller County historical group for quite a few years. And so thank you to Steve for prodding the commissioners to prod the county administrator for trying to get that revitalized. Okay, so that's where we're at with that. And I think that's all we wanted to just touch base on that, as I recall. Okay, item B, the draft work plan for next year. Did you guys take a good look at it? CJ and Karen went through and tried to put it in a little bit more usable format for us. There was a memo attached with what the kind of the thought process was and breaking it into like-minded subjects. So this sheet here is the one with the breaking it into the different sections. So the administrative part, the educational part, the ongoing continuous activities that we right now are carrying over year to year, and then the projects that are active. And then I believe there was an additional one for future projects. I don't, maybe I didn't print out the latest.
It just got lost in
It
two siding.
could have. So there's a fifth category for future projects. Remember how we've had things on the agenda and I've gotten a little persnickety about not wanting something to drop off the agenda because I didn't want to lose sight of it. So CJ and Karen have created a kind of this placeholder parking spot for projects we don't want to forget. So that'll be in the fifth category on our work plans down here. There'll be future projects. So that's the format in general. And when these guys went through the way Karen explained it to me, you see in parentheses on the end of each one of those, that's directly can be correlated back to our last year's work plan. This was our 2024 work plan. And so the numbers on the new one at the end of each of those sentences correlate to each one of these. So they tried to make sure nothing fell off or dropped off and still tried to account for all of them that way. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that more or less right?
Yeah, from a staff perspective, the work plan, while everything was there, you guys will recall, there's been times when we've tried to find something on the work plan. It's not been that easy, and it's like, where is it? And we joked internally that it felt a little bit like buckshot. And then when you look at the numbers behind each of these items, now that they've been categorized, you can see that they really did kind of fall around, like they're just the first category. They were items 2, 8, 12, and 11, 12, and 13. And so it really was sprinkled in the 2024 document. And this was something I had fantasized about doing last year, but just didn't quite have the time or attention to make it happen. So we made that more of a priority this year. So I do think it'll at least help us at a staff level to keep track of what's going on. And I think it'll also help this committee in terms of how many projects are we actively working on. Because there's lots of desire and excitement to for all kinds of things, but there's also just capacity limitations. And then like Lori was saying, we don't want to lose sight of good projects either. We want to make sure we get those like targeted or identified and kind of keep a list of that going.
Well, or if something new comes down the pipe and it falls in our lap all of a sudden, if we just have that placeholder to make sure that we can talk about it some more. So
and then the other thought on this is for the final work plan for 2025, those numbers in parentheses will go away. That was just for you guys as a working document to make sure you could see that everything's been accounted for. But like future agendas in 2025, if we're talking about like the ocean to ocean highway, that'll show up on the agenda with a P1 after it. So it'll help you correlate it back to how it fits on the work plan. In terms of just, are we working on our work plan, or are we getting, I guess, sidetracked by other fun perspective things? And those fun perspective things may need to get, gain traction and be worked on, but I think it is helpful if we're a little more conscious of where we're spending our time.
So two, on each of these sections, you tried to put, I'm gonna, because this is easier for me, down under projects, active. So you rather than a bearing ocean to ocean highway in the sentence, it's at the first of the sentence.
Yeah, so we gave each topic, each priority a header or a title word or words. You know, because like under ongoing continuous activities, we have downtown preservation, Youth Pass Historical Society support, our annual property inspections we do, and then the city cemetery work that's been going on. So it's easy, much more easy and skimmable to find those. We can certainly reorder these within the categories, or if you're feeling that something's in the wrong category, it can certainly be moved. And then the ink that's in red, or ish, because our copier's doing weird things downstairs, it's slightly faded orange. That's new language we were adding. So like Project P5, Bergstrom Park Reimagined, that's new in its entirety, which is why that whole thing shows up that way. So it was, because you know, we've done that other years too, in terms of like, what are we changing from year to year? So I wanted to make sure you can see that. There's a colored one there, Dave, if you need.
So let me just point out, guys, so under projects and now the P5, which says Bergstrom Park Reimagined, if you'll notice up above, the depot building is not appearing.
Erin, can you hand me that other color?
Is that right?
It's because it's from the future
Oh.
projects. At least I just hope you get what you need there.
Okay. So the point being, and we can. So I'm going to regress just a little bit. The DDA meeting, discussion of Bergstrom Park. So I was not able to be there because I was sick. And I understand that Linda was there and Steve was there.
Correct.
Okay. So I did a little bit of legwork and approached Erin and about where this is going in terms of, we've invested a lot of time and effort into the depot/baggage building. But technically it's a park. It's Bergstrom Park. So now that it's kind of bubbled up to the surface and we have a developer who has one idea perhaps, and maybe what's the interest, it's going to fall under Park and Rec according to Erin and what Erin wants to do. So my request was, since we've invested so much time into what this project for the depot building might look like, this is much bigger than what we were looking at through our scope of work, if you will. There's the restroom situation, there's the depot building, there's the parking situation, there's the electric charging stations, there's a whole, finally, since there's a developer, Parks and Rec is going to head up the effort, and I asked if we couldn't be a partner in that based on all the work that's come before. So we had a matching grant in our budget, which we will talk about when we get to as well. And that matching grant and that money was for putting together a scope of work specifically for the depot building. But we also have a couple other things on the plate that those dollars potentially could be used for. We're kind of having to pull back the depot building thought process because Parks and Rec is going to head up and there may be an outside consultant that might be brought in. There might be public input that might be wanted. That whole process has yet to be defined. So on behalf of our group, I put in a request that we could possibly be included, not further down the process, but earlier in the process to maybe help to define the scope of that area. And I've heard nothing back, so I would ask Karen if you've heard anything back on that.
Not yet. I know they were, they're working on getting things set up and, getting things in the 2025 budget for the city. Around funding, for a consultant to help lead that effort. That's all I know at this point. I've talked to the Parks and Rec director about the same concerns that you're expressing. So she's very aware of this committee's desire to be part of all those conversations very early in the process. So it's moving on government time, which it
So-
takes a little bit to make sure that, okay, this is going to make the cut in the budget. We've got the funding allocated and get the consultants on board.
Okay, so having said that, Smitty, Carol Harvey was one of our last liaisons. Not the last one, but one prior to or whatever. And she actually, she was on our board as a liaison. And then when she left council, she was on our board as a private citizen for a while. And so she also was very active in getting the asbestos abatement grant written that we submitted to the mine. And she got that for us and so she's very knowledgeable. She's now on the Parks and Recs liaison. Carol's very much in favor of our group working with that group. So I'm giving you a heads up that I've had some conversation with Carol being receptive to that. So I wanted to share that with you specifically.
Help me out. I thought Carol was on a different committee and that it's Jeffrey Greer
It's
here
Jeff Gear,
that's on the PRAB.
yeah.
Oh,
She's
okay, I did.
on something else in the one with
The
the military veterans.
Veterans Liaison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget what she's on, but yeah,
Maybe she's on Keep Woodland Park Beautiful.
that's it.
She's on Keep Woodland Park Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's not on the Parks and Rec one. So Jeff is?
Jeff.
Is. Okay. So I can just tell you that we have Carol's support from being part of our group in two different capacities. Would really like some synergy to come together with our two groups. So I'm just gonna pass that on to you, hoping we can push that along because I don't know where the purview with the depot building falls and the work we've done with that, because the intent from this committee's perspective is that we would rehab, the city owns the building and the city through our guidance would rehab the inside of that building, bring it up to code and get it so that it could be opened and basically the displays and turned over to Meat Pass Historical Society to be able to expand their railroad exhibit items specifically to engage and help expand the walking tour that they have. Now that's been our previous conversation. I think we have new players involved with the whole Bergstrom Park thing and the thought process. And these new players have no idea of what some of the discussion has been gone before in placemaking conversations about that area and other things. So my interest was to make sure we just totally didn't get cut out of that process. Because we have invested probably 5 or 6 years in trying to do a variety of things. And Dave, I don't know how far it goes back to when you did we got those original quotes and we did all sorts of things, so.
Before or something like that.
at least.
See, and I see this coming back. I see us ultimately applying for the grant and that building coming to life again. But that because of the Reimagine Bergstrom Park initiative needing to, or likely gonna be gaining some momentum here much quicker, I think that potentially makes our grant application stronger. It may come up with other ideas for bringing this stuff together and attracting even more folks to that area. So that was a lot of the reason it's on the future projects right now is just because of the Reimagine Bergstrom Park gaining some momentum.
So, I'm just gonna throw this out. So Steve, I know that Tony Perry asked you to participate, throw in your 2 cents worth. And one of the things that's come up repeatedly is some sort of statue or bronze recognition for Burt Bergstrom. And I think you're down that path a little ways. So if there was to be a bronze down the road is in Bergstrom Park, Burt is a historical figure. On the other hand, that's a park. So how do we need as an organization to consider dollars and budgets and support for that? Or how, I mean, if this is a multiple group effort, where does the push for honoring Burt come? Does it come through our group? I'm thinking out loud here. I don't know, guys. I don't know.
I think that can come from more than one source and it just needs to be inserted into that process. You know, of
Okay.
when they're starting to talk about the park.
So when we're looking at our plan, is that something it's just buried in the Reimagining Bergstrom Park type thing, or is it something we should call out
Call out where?
down here under?
Okay, that's new because
No,
internally we've not ever talked
No,
about
we
it.
haven't, and I'm just wondering if since it is a historical element, if it would be something, since we're trying to finalize our 2025 work plan. I'm just throwing it out there, Karen. I don't know if it does or doesn't. I just don't want us to lose sight of. Because Steve, you've stirred up some interest from several groups, haven't you, for honoring Burt? Did I lose you, Steve?
No, he's there.
No, I had to unmute myself. No other groups have I spoken to other than Tony and Derek. And the last I heard, when I gave them the approximate price for a life-size bronze, that gave them a little heartburn. They're thinking something on a smaller scale. That's if they have to pay for it. If they have to pay for 100% of it, I should say.
What was that price?
I told them, I called the artist and got a price from him, the guy who did the Eric Dixon one for me. I'm thinking it was 90 grand.
Wow, Steve. That's life size?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Eric's was right about 90, but that was, I don't know. It was about 90 for Eric's too.
Okay. I just don't want us in the all of us are involved with different groups in conversation, and if it's always good to just have good information is all I'm saying, so that we all know. So, okay, it's just another piece of the puzzle. If we're going to try to do something with Bergstrom Park from the historical angle.
And they want to do something. They want to commemorate him. They've told me that absolutely,
Okay,
but I just don't have a budget yet.
so they're interested. So it could be one of those obviously joint projects with multiple groups plugged into this, which we just want to make sure that in the process through Cindy's group and Park and Rec and that it's included in there. Okay. 90 grand. Holy crap.
I don't have that much discretionary spending in the entire planning budget. just FYI.
Okay, all right.
Before you go on
Yeah.
from that, I think the efforts and the interest is huge. It's a big deal. But what's the background on this? You were mentioning about some incentive getting this going, the reimagine Bergstrom Park. Who is that? And what does a developer have to do with it in that there's property being developed? What does that have to do with city property?
My comment had to do specifically, from my understanding is, the developer would like to see more parking. In a nutshell, up there.
Good, tell them to move to Walmart.
And in wanting more parking, some of the city-owned property that currently has a little bit of parking with some charging stations, a bathroom that has vandalism issues, our little depot building, and then that green grassy area, and then the stupid round thing. So when you talk about reimagining, I believe there are some people that are reimagining all of that. Possibly. So if people are coming, different people are coming to the table with different ideas of what that could or should look like.
Which you guys may recall, August 6th, 7:30 in the morning, that's when DDA had their regular meeting and did a work session specifically related to reimagining Bergstrom Park. That was the first time they were throwing that out for general conversation about all that. And the DDA at that point was leading this because of the adjacent development, and then because it falls within the boundary of the DDA area. So I think that's why they were stepping up to the plate around that. Since Tony Perry reached out directly to Steve might have more insight on that. I don't know. But y'all were invited to that work session, as they were just wanting to at least start a conversation. Ironically, Parks and Recreation was not invited. So, it's nice that they had that to at least get this started to gain some momentum. So we realized it does need ideally an outside consultant to kind of help collect everybody, pull it together, listen to all the different players, because they don't have a horse in the race then. They can hopefully pull all that together in a more balanced way. So that's the desire with all of that. And I don't know what the time frame is for actually getting like a kickoff meeting or anything going, because like I said, we don't actually have budget funds allocated for it yet. But that's my understanding of the direction we're headed. So.
Okay. Comment is that's very good to study that. As a parking hotspot with me, because from day one for 45 years ago, it was making a damn parking lot plan for a store on Temple Gap and Academy, which was little more than a gravel road at that time. Since that time, it's been 100% struggle with parking. That's always the developer is responsible for that. Nowhere has there ever been a chance for a developer to take city property, city common property, and put that on. So I'm absolutely opposed to that. Little kind of parallel, but an aside, is everybody's out of step with today's parking directions on that. Parking standards are going down, not up. The green build sustainability always pushes heavy to that. Charging stations are becoming a standard mandatory piece on it. But that's really not there yet to say what that should be on it. Denver doesn't even know what their stuff means. They've got reams of stuff coming out on requirements for charging stations in development, but they can't even interpret it themselves to get anything done. It's put a hold on multifamily development, affordable housing and the like. So just a comment there to bring that up to more like to current speed on where parking concerns lie in the rest of the jurisdictions that I'm working in.
Cool. It's good to know. And it's because of expertise like you have, Dave, that I think we should be part of the decision-making and some of the things that are being kicked around. And the ideas and what we've been talking about and partnering with the UPass Historical Society and trying to bring this about. So hopefully we'll get to be a key player in it.
Hopefully, and yes, absolutely, Park and Rec should be absolutely upfront with it, and it's a good idea, somebody's gotta pay for it, but it's a good idea to have a consultant with it, and my plea would be coming from this group and others like it, is that pay attention to what the consultant has to say, any public input and so on, that has been alarmingly disregarded in the past. That's
I
more
did
political than I
Oh, go
know.
ahead. No, I just spoke with the DEA president at the volunteer dinner, and I burned his ear as a citizen, what I expect to happen there. How much he listened, I don't know, but I said, this is where I'm coming from.
This was to John Gamelke you were talking to?
Yes.
Yeah,
Like a half hour's worth, I gave him the goals of, what our committee, what's aside as a citizen of 58 years and what expectations. I didn't get to the meeting this morning because I don't get up early.
they actually moved it to next Tuesday morning.
No.
Yeah,
Oh,
so you didn't miss a
sabotage.
thing.
That's sabotage. He did listen. He did. I don't think he really had a good understanding of what all happened in that area and all that. So I did burn his ear for a while.
All right,
All right.
scorched a little. Eric, any comments, thoughts? We good? I just wanted to make sure we had some dialogue because a lot is going on. And it does affect us. How we go forward here. Okay, so having said that,
No, I don't have any, just I'm listening and
Smitty?
agreeing and.
you have anything?
Oh, I'm taking notes,
Oh, okay. Cool. Okay,
so I
so,
don't forget.
I don't know that Linda offered a comment to the work plan about fire mitigation, I believe.
It's under future projects because things were pretty full there.
Right, okay, but so it's got a placeholder, so it's in there, because that was one of her concerns.
I can talk about this a little bit more to go through here if you want in general.
Sure,
Okay.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, so the things that are highlighted in red, like I said, it's we're proposing for next year. So it's the 2025 work plan. Under A4, we made this switch that, it's in August of next year when we should be looking at the 2026 budget. With regard to our Education Act, and I'm highlighting changes here. So with regard to the education component of this committee, we kicked around a couple of times and it shows up on our work plan, I think at least 1 year, if not 2 possibly, that possibility of doing like a youth poster contest. And we talked about collaborating with UPass Historical Society for that. But then there's this new thing that was happening this year, that when CJ and I met with Lori, I think it was last week, it kind of came to us in the course of that conversation that this summer, because of one of the folks that's now working in the Parks and Rec department, they were doing art camps. So the possibility or the idea is to maybe coordinate with that Parks and Rec summer art camp program to within there maybe do history posters with the kids. So and we haven't floated it to Parks and Rec, but that's what that additional red language there is under E2. And so where's our regular poster we do? Because of a few other things going on, Dave, it's actually under future projects, it got moved over there to F1. For the possibility of an 11th poster. So it's still there, and if you, like I said, this is where you guys can move stuff around if you want to. Then the other changes happen under the projects, the active specific projects we're doing. You know, we were talking about Bergstrom Park Reimagined, so that shows up there. The big one that really needs our time and attention is preparing a preservation plan. And we actually do have Lindsay Flowing with History Colorado lined up to be at our October meeting to talk more about that and what's involved with that. So under future projects, like the things that got moved was that creation of an 11th poster, the Midland Terminal Railway Station, to obtain grant funds, you know, for that, you know, redevelopment of that building. The Boss Building preservation, that was actually tied into another item. Where is it? Oh, that was part of the preservation plan. Which is, so we peeled that out separately since it's potentially a separate project, but you know, you've got an existing owner that's really not wanting to do anything. But of course, we're not wanting to lose sight of the building, so that's why it shows up as possibility of, you know, just future preservation of that building. And then the fire mitigation plan for the historic structures. That's a new idea that shows up under the future projects. And the only reason, like I said, it's there is because when you look at this first page, the first 4 categories, especially the active specific projects, they're pretty full projects for a group of volunteers. So, and that's with the belief that the Bergstrom Park Reimagine's gonna take off and require some time and attention between that and the preservation plan. So.
Okay. Any questions for Karen on?
Oh, I do wanna, and to highlight one other thing under the projects, P3 is that Junction House, Roberts House, exploring grant opportunities for historical assessments for that property. So that's, since that's not in Bergstrom Park, not potentially subject to other discussion, you know, it's probably a safe one to look at doing something with. That's why that's clearly still there.
Well, and as well as Steve has put in, to make you guys aware, Steve put in an application. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, you gotta put in an application to see if you're even, to get a green light to say they would at least accept a grant application from you. So you did fill out an application and submitted that. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I just got a email about an hour and a half ago that my letter of intent application was accepted and we're qualified to apply for a competitive grant.
Okay, so that was the first step. Okay, so for my clarification, is this competitive grant a cost share type grant or just a pile of money?
What type of match do you need for that, if any?
I think, Karen, I think it was
25%.
at least 10, but I'm thinking 20%, I believe. I have it in an email, but
Steve, you know what? I remember you telling me it was a $25,000 grant. It's a 25% match. I think you told me 6,250.
25%, okay. Yeah, I did send you that. So the city would have to
6,250.
come up with 6,250.
So because we have a placeholder, so when we talk about our budget, we have monies that with Frank, when he was the liaison, got it. I'm going off my memory here, guys. Karen, please jump in. So we've got monies that got designated from the city for matching purposes.
And at that time, it was targeted towards the baggage building.
Right, and now said depot/baggage building is on back burner because we don't have the control, it's gonna slide in under now the reimagined Bergstrom Park thing. So it's very, so we do have some monies budgeted technically if this came about. Is that a,
Well, depending on timing of things, so I don't know how fast what the turnaround time is for the grant Steve's talking about. But in my budget conversations with the city manager, since we were not spending that money this year, because even if we got a grant application, then we wouldn't be starting work to expend funds this year. I asked him to just put that same amount in next year, so it's still there. So whether or not that proves to happen or not, but that was the request I made at the department head level. And then we did talk about the possibility of the monies for whether it was the baggage building or the Roberts House. So that was a little bit of a fluid kind of thing at the moment.
so the point is that if that money stays in the budget, we do have a
grant match.
potential, a grant match for that, Steve. 6,250, I'm pretty sure. Sure, that's 25%. Okay. So the point is, it's in our, going forward right now, it's in our budget.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers
the
crossed
council
for
approves
that,
it For
Steve.
25.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense?
Makes sense.
So Steve, I know you told me you got a letter with that approval. When is the grant application due?
My next date that I have to worry about, and I would want some costs from Karen or someone about asbestos abatement, but September 10th, what's the date today?
The third.
The 3rd? I believe it's September 10th. If I could get a application in for the grant by then, they'll go over it with me and point out indiscrepancies, ways I can make it better, things of that nature. If I could get it into them by the 10th, which I will do, but I need a specific amount to apply for. I'm thinking like 25K. That it was, wasn't the baggage like 20,000 for asbestos abatement, David?
It was actually a little bit less. I went over that with Linda, and we used the previous numbers that we'd gotten there, which was actually a especially good deal.
Yeah, it's like 12 grand.
And so we added to it for inflation and a little bit of safety factor there. Consequently rounded up to where we were feeling reasonable that was some work, some shopping consultants, if you will, that would be a reasonable thing to come up with. The better way to do that, but I don't know that time allows now, is to get a consultant to look at the asbestos abatement people that I found when we were doing the baggage building.
So Steve, we can get you the contact info for the different asbestos abatement companies that we're aware of.
Okay.
We
And
follow-
I would probably have to go down to the Roberts house one night and get a square footage. Do you think? I've never done asbestos abatement before,
They come in and do their own analysis.
but I mean, what I mean is for this early grant request on the 10th, if I have to have a figure, these people that you're talking about, if I gave them a square footage right away, would that enable them to give me a price?
No, they are so specific on what they're looking at, what it takes to do that, because the abatement, a big deal about that is not just the analysis of what the quantities are, but how much labor it's going to take to get it out of there. And there's no way except for them to kind of do it off the cuff of their labor.
I
don't
see.
know if that was passed on to you, but the company mentioned that we did get on the baggage building has been comment, the only place some of the local contractors will go, because they are so stellar in their service and openness to add on, without complaining about add on little extra work that it comes on as it comes through. So that's where I'm saying that the, if they could so much as get a glance at it, they would be a much more educated number than I and Linda could put together.
Well, and help, my memory's a little fuzzy here. But I believe under state law, the people who identify the asbestos, it's a different company that has to do the abatement, so you're dealing with two different folks.
I think you're probably right.
So-
What my thought was that the company who did the abatement would be, since they were so good, such quality service, that they would give a better prediction of what the asbestos analyst would be saying better than I.
So there's a couple steps, Steve. One is the analyst identifying where is the asbestos. Because the form that it's in and its location is probably what impacts the price more than what's the square footage of the building. Because they're looking at, is it in the floor tile? Is it in the mastic that adheres the floor tile to the floor? Is it in insulation around pipes? Is it in siding? So there's all kinds of places, or other insulation sources. There's all kinds of places that can show up. So that's why somebody needs to show up and be there first, to identify what is the source and some approximate quantities, but then somebody else who's potentially doing the actual remediation, those guys get you the real cost of what is the remediation gonna run you.
Okay,
So if we
uh,
have Steve talk to Dave,
I don't know if, I'm gonna go to my email messages right now. I don't know if it's gonna screw up my participating in this, but I want to see when the actual deadline is. The early deadline is the 10th, but the later deadline, I'll have to check, so I'll be right back.
okay. Any other comments about?
Well, I was gonna say, like a lot of things the state of Colorado does around grants, worst case scenario, it's not this cycle of grants for this, but we do some of the other homework and get things in place for, actually submitting things on the next cycle for the competitive funds. So, but we'll get them what the information I have.
Yeah, and I, depending on who Steve's talking to, my understanding was deadline is this fall, they'll award it not too long afterwards, so it would be in the queue for possible work going forward into the spring. So, okay. So we'll see what Steve comes back with, but,
I'm back right now.
okay,
It's October 1st is the deadline at noon for the real deal.
Okay.
okay.
So I wonder if we're gonna be able to get prices by then.
We'll find out. All we can do is try.
Okay, and I wonder if we even really actually need a price, or if I could just put a generic figure down,
Yeah,
like,
probably want to be at least close.
Well, you said some folks up there, if you get something, a draft or preliminary proposal in by the 10th, they'll help you walk through. Then maybe they can fine tune and tell you how nailed down that asbestos number has to be, Steve.
okay, I'll give them a call. That'll be too late today, but I'll give them a call tomorrow, and my friend works there that's involved with this, and he could hopefully give me some recommendations.
Okay. The good news is we've got this little pot of money too, so that if this is bubbling up to the top, baggage building's over here on the back burner, and keep moving on something here. Anything else on the work plan? Anything you guys like what it says? I think we've encapsulated most things. I think we have encapsulated most things on that work plan.
Have you had a chance to peruse Steve's? I haven't seen it much. He's a little more thorough list, and I'm not seeing conflicts and good thoughts.
What?
Email from Steve on his suggestions.
When did am I even on that? Because if I'm not, that creates a challenge for me to like help.
What's it, Steve, when did you send that?
3:26 this morning.
I
saw
No, I haven't seen it.
We need to cover all those. That'll
Okay.
keep us busy.
Yeah, I did not get anything from Steve.
Oh, you didn't?
Nope. Is CJ even on there? Because CJ didn't say a word to me about it.
It's just
It's
a
loaded.
line of us.
Well,
You saw it.
I saw it.
Yeah.
It's loaded.
It is.
It's like a 5-year project.
Mhm. I'm glad I asked.
I mean, I would have been, well,
There,
especially,
it's coming at, you should have it now, Karen.
okay.
Some of these things are in our, a placeholder in our budget for things like plaques and things of that nature. So some of those things are here, Steve.
Are some of them things that potentially need to be hopefully incorporated into a preservation plan?
I, yes, Steve, some of these things are historical society things like the oral histories. Some of these things,
Yeah, I didn't segregate any of my thoughts from any organization. I just gave my thoughts on what would help historical preservation and in Woodland Park.
so Steve, as we go forward with this, writing the, what's the plan?
Preservation
The
plan.
preservation plan, and you've got experience with that, and if we get Lindsay down here next month, and hopefully you can be at that meeting so we can understand some of the options. I understand that you can hire outside with consulting services and try to come up with some monies to do it, but you also, if we have the capability and you have some experience with writing these, we could do it in-house, and a lot of the things I think you've got in this email would dovetail into something like that, and
I see a lot of this going into the preservation plan, quite honestly.
right, right.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. So thank you for reviewing that. Can you come next month, you think? For her being here?
She may be zooming in. I
Oh.
can't remember. I think we gave her, because, you know, it's a hall.
It's
for-
a hall, so she may be
Virtual.
Zoom? Okay,
Yeah.
cool,
So,
okay.
which if that's the case, it'll still work if you're not in the room, Steve. You just zoom in.
I would probably show up because I'm still having a very hard time understanding what anybody's saying.
Okay. Okay,
In fact, I got it on closed caption. I got it on closed caption so I could read.
try to capture it a little better. Okay, so the draft plan leads to the draft budget, and the draft budget pretty much is the status quo from last year.
Hold on.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead. I'll circle back to my thoughts. Go ahead,
Okay.
go ahead with the budget.
So on the budget, guys, if you look and see, and remember, last year it was bumped up to 12,000, and that was because of Frank's dollars and the placeholder for any grant matches. So if you look down through here, everything's the same. So we still plunked in the poster printing, plaques, interpretive signage is something that we've had on our, in the past. But it's on the budget as a placeholder, but there's no dollars in there. We still budgeted in here for conference attending, which would be saving places in the January/February timeframe, I presume. And listed on here is asbestos abatement, as well as the baggage building remodel, and that's where the placeholder is for the dollars. Any questions?
So how's this, really read? So you've got a bottom line of 12,000 to follow the pattern before, but there's also the notes for, future capital request for the barn and house on Robert's house, I assume.
Yep.
And so does that mean that the 12,000 could go up another 36,000? If that's,
Well, at this point, we've got a grant match, so if we don't get the grant, that's like a whole other request in terms of, hey, city, potentially going back to Newmont, will you provide money to help us get the remediation done? Right now, it's asking for the grant monies with a grant match to get that done.
so that's 100% grant request. If matching funds become a part of that, then that's not covered. Mike, I'm trying to understand.
I don't
That's all.
understand your, right now, we're asking for grant money, and we have a match for a $25,000 grant. That's where we are right now.
So we need to put that 6,250 needs to fall under the hard
With-
numbers in the budget.
It falls within that 9,100. 9,100 is the amount allocated for matches right now.
Okay, so those, both those boxes really go to 1,9,100.
Yes. Yeah, I'll say yes.
Um, So if you've got 6,250, that's, I mean, I don't know specifically what it is off the top of my head, but it seems like that may be a little low, and it depends on, can that be worked on relative to Steve's work on the grant application
For,
to be
Right.
refined?
for a $25,000 grant, we have to have 25% of that. So that's the 6,250 we need to bring to the table for the state's. Whatever that is. Hang on. The state would be bringing 18,750. Is my understanding.
And Steve, as far as you know, that application you put in was for 25, the thought process is for 25,000.
I have not told them a dollar amount at all yet.
Okay, that you just mentioned that to me then. 25,000,
Well, based
Yeah.
on the maximum that they'll
The
grant
grant.
under that.
gotcha, okay. And that particular opportunity.
I think that number needs to be worked on, because that's less than $3,000 left to finish up a whole permit application with electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, plumbing doesn't count, but, as well as the code study work that goes with that. So I think that's low. That was brought, those things are all brought forward from, like you were saying, was it 4 or 5 years ago? It's getting to be quite a while ago that those things were put on that. So I need to get you more real numbers to go into that budget for finishing up permit drawings.
For
baggage
the
building.
baggage.
Mhm. And then all asbestos abatement subjects are separate side of that. Maybe it'd be better to make it clear to separate those.
Are you in your mind separating Junction House from baggage?
Well, and,
Well, and add them together too,
Well,
since it is together now.
yeah.
like I said, in my initial conversations with Aaron, I was not asking for any more money. I was trying to not lose what we had.
Mhm.
So that's why this number is what it is.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to hold on to what we had. Because we didn't, based on the deadline I had for turning this into Aaron, did not have any of these other numbers or conversations for any of that. So for the purposes of the budget being a guide, is this an okay guide for 2025? Especially since I think getting the newer numbers on the baggage building is probably appropriate, but that's not likely to gain any real traction next year because of the reimagining Bergstrom Park project. So that would probably be like the year after that, by mid-year, like July-ish of 25, it would be helpful to have better numbers for the 26 budget. Okay.
So the work is good, but kind of sort of to go along with what you did, the question is that a little short of what it needs to be given
For what?
upgrades for that whole area on there, the future and the grand matches there. Does it put you in danger to add to that? I mean, danger of not getting approval at all? How's this really going?
I don't
I'm not a
know.
budgeter, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a feel for that. I don't have a feel for that, Dave. Especially since we don't have good numbers around the asbestos abatement. So, given where we are in the city's budget process, I think probably just the work Steve needs to do for the grant will help inform what I potentially need to nudge Aaron with, and may or may not, I mean, I think I can get a 25% match for a $25,000 grant. I mean, if we're holding on to what we got, that I have, but anything beyond that, I'm not clear on that.
Sure.
So.
Sure, and I'm saying, hopefully it's all fine and correct. Nevertheless, that leaves the baggage building a little short on lumping that together, I think.
Right, and like I said, this still says baggage building, but I think it sounds like for next year, based on the work plan, the focus would be the Roberts House. The baggage building's on the back burner for a year. And then, so the baggage building wouldn't hit the budget until 2026.
So you got updated numbers in regards to that scope of work for the electrical and everything that we talked about before, that would apply towards
2026.
2026 budget.
Unless you guys decide there's something else you're doing on the Roberts House at that point, and Bergstrom Park still isn't cooked for some reason in terms of whatever direction it's going. So it's hard when you got moving parts, but the good news is there's some exciting things going on.
We just question whether it's good to call after all these years of effort to try to make progress of the baggage building that is still now back burner.
Oh, I think it'll come to life. I really do. My personal hope is that Reimagine Bergstrom Park will help spark other fires and interests and desires around that area and that park and that building.
So,
That's my personal hope in terms of what comes out of this.
I believe it.
I hope so.
Just how much to back burner this stuff. I'm not a politician.
Well, that's why we have the future projects category, is so we don't lose sight of it. That's why we're holding on to that.
Thank you.
And based on Steve's list, that may grow a little bit. Yeah, from your email, Steve, I really do see a lot of that falling more in a preservation plan that we use as that guiding document to inform our work plan on an annual basis. So.
Well, I think we should go for the Roberts one. If you share about Bergstrom, we don't know, and let that sort of resolve itself. And I'd like to see something happen with the Roberts place for sure, before it deteriorates or before the homeless find it and send them back or whatever. And get something started down there, because you drive by, it looks like, oh, what's happening here? So, no, personally, let's go for the Roberts one for sure with the finance. See what we can do with it.
I hate to lose those dollars if they're available, you know, from a match perspective, because it took a while for Frank to get those dollars in there, as I recall, but.
See
Really
what we
did
got
go
in that
back
building,
to
we
that.
don't know what's in the building, right? As Steve said, we gotta know what's inside, and you said
Yeah.
the floors, whatever, the siding.
Well, and based on, there's a note that we've been dragging along in this budget since 2012.
Yeah.
You know, in that far right column that says, future capital request for the Junction House asbestos abatement. So from 2012, at that time, they were estimating asbestos abatement in the barn at almost $18,000. And then in the house at 17,500. So add 12 years to that. I can only imagine what that dollar figure is. So the work that we're gonna do here in this next week or two around getting, a better feel for like, where is the asbestos? And then what does it potentially cost to abate that is gonna be very important numbers for wherever we are or what we're doing next, so.
Well, and through this process since this timeframe, if I remember correctly, that original quote to do the asbestos abatement over here at the depot building
It's like 8,000 or something.
was at 8,000, and by the time we finally got around everything in place, it ended up being 11 or 12,000, but I also think Dave got involved and we ended up with a different contractor that we discovered a better contractor in the process that actually got the work done for.
Which is why we got it done at the lower price, because otherwise it was coming in even higher.
So next, so my point is these numbers back in 2012 could be from what it would now be not such a great company or one that's not around, because it seems to me they might have disappeared. So we almost need to go back to the drawing board with this 2012 note that's being drugged around to see if we now put 2024 note, drag it forward. So,
No, I think
Okay.
we'll get that answered here in the next month,
okay, cool. So we'll get some things updated and stuff and be in better shape. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
So with these two things, if you all are comfortable, I'd like to get this to a final version to have in front of you in November for you guys to bless off on for the following year.
November, October.
In October, sorry, one of those months.
Okay, next month. Got it. Okay. Well, we'll know more, maybe a little bit more too after listening to Lindsay and what some of our options might be there too.
I'd like to get this closer to
Sure.
what you guys are wanting to sign off on.
Okay. Anything else on that little note? Okay. The item on here is the Templeton Cemetery Restoration Plan, and it's just because we need something in writing, just so we sort of kind of have a thumbnail sketch of what it is we're trying to do. Steve has, I believe, Steve, you've been in contact with a professor up there at Colorado School of Mines, and I believe just in the last couple of weeks, there's interest in one of the graduate classes, or a few of them coming. You're getting some work done over there in Park County by a group, and the professor told you that there was interest in coming down and doing ground penetrating radar on Templeton's yet this year. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We got 2 students lined up for Park County right now, because that was my first priority. And then when 2 more graduates or 2 more students come along that are interested in doing the same kind of project, their next stop will be Templeton Cemetery then. So I'm hoping this spring or next summer that we'll be able to get that done.
And typically, these kids, for their graduate program, they're doing this, they're funded totally at their end because they need this project. Is that correct?
I couldn't quite make that out, but we would have to provide gas and food for them. That's what we did, what I had to do the other 3 times I had them do it for me.
Okay, so basically you paid them per diem. And so-
Yes,
And fuel to get here.
And home.
And
per
how-
diem, and then I set up an account at a local cafe for them to go up and eat lunch, and then I would square up with the cafe.
Okay, so we do have an contingency expenses in here.
Yeah, that's where we put the headstone restoration.
Mhm.
And then, if we're not doing our own poster next year,
Right.
there's some funds there. You know, if we're really embracing the youth poster idea.
So we have some dollars to slide around a little bit if we need to. So Steve, we're not talking a whole lot of money anyway for them to reimburse them. It sounds like food and gas. We can do that.
That's correct.
Okay.
And
So,
while we're on that subject of Templeton, I found two more graves, the names of two more people buried there. So I had some headstones, two headstones made up that I have in my possession now. So the next time I get over to Templeton, I'll be able to place two more headstones. And I know the grave where one of them goes positively, the other I'll just have to kind of put in a spot and
so how did you find these other two? How did-
just, I dig all the time.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what I would ask is that maybe at our next meeting or something, maybe Eric and Steve work together to put a thumbnail. Okay, we've got ground penetrating radar. You've identified a couple more. If the plan would be to continue to try to identify additional folks, if the thought process is for additional gravestones, the thought process is any, what other work or request or thoughts of trying to get the golf course, because it's privately owned property. If there's thoughts of fencing, I'm just making crap up here, guys. Point is, come up with something in writing of what this project would look like and the types of things to get to the end, or what would be the ultimate goal at the end. Maybe, because we've really been flying by the seat of our pants on this, as you're able to get support for us, Steve, and some things, it'd be nice to just document it for the sake of our committee.
And I'd be glad to map it. I mean, that's part of what I can do is
It's
get a
mapped as
physical
well.
map of it that has very accurate locations.
Right, so making that overall plan of what maybe we're trying to do with Templeton.
And maybe perhaps plating or
Yeah,
changing some lines or something, and I think that one kind of got lost in the shuffle, but I believe that Linda Breetag should have that.
okay.
I haven't looked lately on the tax map. I will look.
So my point is just, if we could put something down of where we think we want to go, how far can we go, what's doable, where are possible roadblocks to get everything whipped back into some sort of, what would a completed plan look like, or would it ever be complete? I don't know. I'm
Be
just
nice to
throwing
have
it out. So maybe Steve, maybe you and Eric can put your heads together and come up with a
wish list.
wish list for Templeton. Just so we have it outlined.
And then, Steve, we potentially need to have a conversation with Aaron about expending, depending on what it is, public money on private property. That may be a little sticky.
If you're talking about the headstones that I just ordered, that's out of my pocket as a tribute and honor to those pioneers.
No, I mean, just in general, depending on what's on the wish list, that may be something that we need
Yeah.
to chat about.
Well, if we get the wish list together.
Let's start with that.
Let's just start with that. I mean, there's other ways to get funding, if we have to.
By the way, And I was gonna say, Steve, that's very, very admirable. I honor you and love that you were willing to expend your personal money that way to honor folks that have gone before us. So thank you for that. That's impressive.
Yes.
Well, and Steve, you and Linda also bought some for the Woodland Park Cemetery, didn't you?
You're muted, Steve.
Yes, we bought quite a few for there.
Okay.
And are there, Steve, are there still some stones, the original group of pioneer stones to raise up and re-solidify over there?
No, we're done with that. The only thing we have left to do there, I have 5 more headstones to order. And once those are placed, I'm pretty well done there.
Okay. Okay.
But we're speaking of grants all throughout this entire meeting. I forgot, I had lunch Sunday with Eric Bergman.
Who's Eric Bergman?
Oops, he froze.
Relative.
Hey, if you can hear us, we can't, you froze on us, Steve.
We lost our connection somehow.
You ended at Eric Bergman.
Okay, anyways, Eric's high up in who gets what money for what with DOLA. And he's gonna look in to see if there's anything DOLA can do for us for the cemetery or the Roberts House. So that's just FYI for you guys.
When you say the cemetery, are you talking Templeton?
Templeton.
Okay, so that's just an FYI. Okay, cool.
So Eric,
Oh, your
it's,
connection, Steve.
yeah, it's pretty nice to have him for a nephew.
Mm.
And I'm sure he was Larry Black. I'm sure he was Larry Black's student also.
It was.
Cool. All right. So my concern is, guys, is there anything else? This is a question for you too, Steve. Is there anything else that needs to go on the work plan so we capture it for next year so that are you dreaming of a project I don't know about, Steve?
No, not really. I still want to get, and I know all you guys have been trying to get this for a long time too, but plaques on buildings. And like I mentioned in that email to you, maybe a kiosk where this happened or a plaque where this happened or that happened, like a railroad wreck or a robbery, Columbine stops, things like that. I would sure like to get signage.
Well, some of that's gonna fall under historical society stuff. We have a procedure for historical plaques. But the owner of the building has to apply typically for that, but there's nothing wrong with a reconstituted effort to work with property owners to do that sort of thing. Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Anything else, guys? We're good? Okay. Dave, I just asked you about this the old church, the old community church. Are those folks still interested?
They're still interested. They've been struggling with trying to survive with some setbacks they had, like a bad roof and just maintenance things for it.
Oh, on the
We're not
building
going to-
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have been considering the input that came thanks from planning department. All that taken under serious consideration. So it's not dead, it's just not moving like they would like to.
Okay. So, but at least it's still, we'll keep it on the back burner because they still are interested in coming.
Yes.
Okay, then we had F and G Bergstrom reimagined basically discussion in Robert's house. I think we've had those discussions unless anybody has anything else. We're good there. All right, down to committee member reports.
Can I add H?
Oh, okay, what you want to add there, Larry?
under ongoing annual inspection, and I see your annual report is due in October, I'm willing to go around and inspect all these buildings, but do you have your building inspection report to send in for this year?
We,
'Cause I did the building inspection with Frank
Frank and Bert,
last year, and did that cover last year, or does that cover this year?
I don't know, I have to figure it out, because I don't remember what month you guys did that. And then there's because it's based on a federal fiscal year as to what our CLG reporting year is. So I don't remember when you guys did it.
It was late in the fall, so
I don't know,
but
we'll figure it
could you-
out.
Could you check and see, I'm willing to do like
Yeah,
this month if you need it for October, but I could do it in October. I'd be willing to do it again.
yeah, we gotta get it scheduled anyhow, and since CJ's being assigned to the committee, you'll probably do it with him.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
memo the,
we'll figure it out.
Okay,
okay, thanks.
Larry, I'll start with you. You got anything to report?
I do. We're doing the Mighty Midland all September, Saturdays and Sundays at 11.
Saturday and Sunday?
Saturday and Sunday at 11, all September. Plus Wednesdays at 5:15.
So every Wednesday in September
Yes,
at 5:15
right,
and every Saturday and Sunday at 11 o'clock.
right. And I'll be there every Saturday to welcome you. Plus, there's the Western Heritage Symposium at the Cultural Center on September 21. And the Historical Society is involved with that also. I do not have time on that.
Hey, where was that again?
Western Heritage, uh,
Symposium at?
the Cultural Center, September 21, but I do not have a time. I assume 9 to 4, but
9 to 4 maybe, okay.
all the historic buildings are gonna be open. Availability for tours.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Eric,
I have nothing.
Dave,
Good, got my outspoken part in already today.
okay, very good. And, so you guys are aware, both Steve and I are now on the board of the Historical Society.
You can take my place on this board
No, I can't.
as a rep.
No, I can't.
You can.
No, I can't.
So, okay,
Steve and I are both. As of last week or week before.
This is Historical Society.
You passed
You
Historical
passed, right.
Society, Steve and I were both asked. And we are now on the board there.
okay.
So you need to put yourself down as a liaison report.
Not at this point, that's Larry. No. Didn't sign up for that. Okay, I don't have anything else other than that. Smitty, do you have anything to share with us?
I'm gonna take these notes and apply to where they're supposed to be.
Okay, coolness. Hope you, it was a scattered meeting today, but
I was keeping up.
okay, cool. Karen, anything else for us?
I don't think so, other than, like I said, internally, we're gonna work on that, our annual CLG report and get that knocked out. So, yeah, in some ways, it was a busier year since we, I can't remember what year technically it was when the Roberts House was designated, if that fell within this year, I think it might have, this reporting year. And then, of course, we modified the preschool in the Pines. You know, so that's some of the stuff that we have to report on. So,
Yeah, wasn't it, Steve? It
I think it
was,
was last,
when did we?
2023.
what month?
I'd have to look it up.
You mean that we designated the Roberts?
Yeah,
23, really?
I don't know, it's kind of on the
It wasn't that long ago, Steve. I don't think so.
historic landmarks. I can get to it here shortly. It was September 7th when the city council did their hearing.
Last year.
Yeah, so it might have technically fallen on the last report, but not by much.
So it was just a year ago.
Yep.
Steve. Just a year ago.
okay.
Okay, cool.
So anyhow,
I don't have anything else.
I don't have anything else. Just thank you guys for your attention and willingness to kind of shake up our work plan. From a staff perspective, we're excited to actually be able to like read it and skim it and find things and.
I think it's an improvement. I think, and I think, I'm just hoping we captured everything so that we have it kind of in one place. And if we,
Based on what was on the table at the time, we do. So I'm sure there'll things that grow.
well, and then writing the preservation plan is going to be huge.
Yeah.
And Steve, that's going to, I think we'll have an opportunity to tie some things together that have been loose ends dangling for a long time on that historical preservation plan, maybe tie some things with the Historical Society together with what we've been working on for a very long time, with a lot of those things that I think both groups have been active in trying to do. So I think it's and you're and Steve, you're still willing to be part of that, I believe, based on what you told me.
Part of what? I couldn't understand you.
Doing a preservation plan for the committee in the city here.
Oh, yeah, I'd participate in that.
Okay,
So we're gonna need you.
we definitely need you. And you kicked out a email that had a whole lot of good stuff in it, and it's obviously you've been involved in that type of work before. So, and having you on board, Steve, will allow us potentially to save a crap load of money to not hire somebody from outside to write that preservation plan.
Yeah, because that's the other thing is like.
We
well,
didn't
got-
budget.
We did not.
We did not budget any money for that. So what we want to do is get Lindsay's input, kind of get our arms around the doing it,
Weigh our options.
what our options are, what it can look like. And then get on your coattails, Steve.
Well, I participated in several 5-year plans for Park County historic preservations, and I have all of those documents.
Okay.
So it would be a good template for us.
Cool. Cool. That's great.
Yeah, that's electronic, you're welcome to send us one that you like, just so we can kind of take a look at it. That'd be nice. And if you don't have it electronic, if you're willing to come by, we can scan it in.
I've got it electronically.
Perfect.
Cool.
So,
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, guys. I think we're adjourned.
5:01.
But I have one, speaking of
You need
Oops.
to-
on your budgets and all that, or the money you have left, do you have money to send one of your members? When Karen mentioned CLG, do you have money to send one of your members to conference?
We did that back in February, and then for next year, there is money in there again for that. 'Cause
Yes.
That's one of our annual requirements.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? We're good.
No,
All right,
Okay, thanks, Steve.
5:02.
5:02.
Oops.
Bye, Amy. Thank you.